Hi, I'm Anthony and welcome to my channel, South Philly Guitar Machine. This is part 2 of my video essay series, where I attempt to talk about my approach to playing like Eddie Van Halen, some of the techniques that I use and how to play those techniques, and also why those are important if you want to sound like Ed. This is all my opinion based on what I've listened to in Van Halen albums, what I've seen in live performances from recordings online, and what I've experimented with and come up with on my own that I think sounds similar to what Ed used to do. So this video consists of 3 examples. I'll show you the example of the technique, and then I will break down what I played as well as how to play it. If you like this kind of content, please leave a like and consider subscribing. If there's something that you'd like to see that I don't cover, then go ahead and leave me a comment. Thanks for watching, and let's jump into the first example. In that first example, what I played was I'm moving up the neck, so we could say it's ascending, let's say that. Take a pick from the duct tape here. And what I'm playing on the B string and the high E string. Only those 2 strings. You can start anywhere and end anywhere, but I've just made a habit of starting at the 4th fret and ending somewhere up around the 18th fret was where my index finger is, or excuse me, the 17th fret is where my index finger is. But again, you can start and end anywhere because it's an ascending chromatic pattern. We're not talking about keys or scales or anything like that. What I'm doing is starting with my index finger on the 4th fret of the B string, and I am playing a legato up a half step and then a whole step. And then I'm jumping to the E string and I'm playing the same thing, but I'm picking every note. Then I'm moving to the 5th fret with my index finger on the B string and I'm playing the same legato and then picking. But in this case, I'm doing 2 whole steps. And that's essentially the pattern. I do half step, whole step on the B string, half step, whole step on the E string. Then I do whole step on the B string, whole step on the E string, and repeat and repeat and repeat. One thing to consider is how you're picking. It's not, although that's fine. For me, when Ed plays it, or plays similar stuff to this, he's really kind of flicking that pick. He's that kind of thing. I will note that when I get up to around the 12th fret, I start mixing in the reverse of the initial pattern. So what I mean by that is I'm doing, instead of half step, whole step, I'm doing whole step, half step. Again, that's totally arbitrary. I just like the way that sounds. I also throw in step and a half, step and a half. So what that looks like is, okay, so again, step and a half between the index and the middle finger, and then another step and a half between the middle finger and the pinky. You can mix and match these however you want. Just find one that works for you, and I recommend practicing this over and over till it becomes intuitive, because it's not the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about as you're playing it, because you will stumble, you will slow down, you will mess up if you're trying to think and play. So practice this kind of thing until you don't have to think about it, to where all you have to do is warm up. Let's take a look at the second example. In that second example, I'm playing in the E minor pentatonic position, the blues scale position at the 12th fret. It doesn't have to be any particular sequence of notes. I just threw it in there because it's something that I resort to a lot, and it's quite frankly, it's one of the easier things that you can do if you're trying to add Eddie Van Halen style influences into your soloing or into your playing. So think about the patterns in the blues scale, think about the notes that are there. For me, I like to stay on a particular set of 7 notes. So that's the 12th fret on the G, the 15th on the G, the 12th on the B, the 14th on the B, the 15th on the B, the 12th on the E, high E, and the 15th on the high E. I like to try to experiment and come up with interesting sequences using those 7 notes, and you'd be surprised what you can come up with only a few notes. key things to consider are, it's not about how many notes you can play, it's about the amount of energy you can put into those notes. So repeating 2 or 3 notes over and over again in the same sequence can be your friend, because if you play it the right way, you can build energy. And Ed's playing is very much about building energy, and we'll talk about that again with the third and final example. But for this example, I'd also like to point out that when I'm doing this kind of thing, I'm really bending the strings. Why am I bending so much? Because it creates a certain amount of dissonance, but not too much so that it throws the ear of the listener off. It just creates enough that they want to keep listening because they naturally want it to resolve. I talked about this in my last video, but creating dissonance is important because it creates a tension that keeps the listener engaged and helps your solo or whatever musical piece you're playing to build energy and move to a climax, to a finish point. One of the easiest ways to do that is to bend. When I'm playing in the E minor pentatonic or any pentatonic position, I like to bend I'll just talk about E minor and you can apply that elsewhere. I like to bend up on the 14th fret of the B string or the 15th fret of the B string and close it there. So, let's try that again. So similar sound, but again, it creates just enough dissonance that the listener wants to move on to the next step with you and doesn't lose interest. Let's take a look at the third and final example for this video. In the third and final example, what I'd like to highlight, because I'm doing a few things, but what I'd like to highlight is the back and forth pinched harmonics between the 5th fret on the G string and the 7th fret on the G string. Calling back what I mentioned before about building up tension, this is a great way to do that. Ed does this a lot in various forms, but this is a very simple way that we can do it. Us mere mortals who are not guitar gods, like Ed, can do it this way. All I'm doing is playing a pinched harmonic back and forth on the G string from the 5th to the 7th. Again, you're going to need some gain on the amplifier because it is a pinched harmonic, and that'll make it ring out a little stronger. It's also important to think about the timing. You want to try to syncopate the timing, try to swing it a little bit. If you're watching this video, you probably know that Ed, when he played, had a lot of natural swing or syncopation in his playing. If you want to sound like Ed, we have to try to develop that ourselves. So that's not what you're doing. And you can build the tension with that to the point where when you move on, you can do anything you want and you pretty much have the listener's ear because you've built that tension and they want to see where it's going. This alone feels incomplete, so whenever you go into the next thing, the listener naturally wants to hear the completion of what you're playing. So once again, most important thing is to pinch those harmonics, have some gain on the amp, and pay attention to the syncopated timing. Well, thank you for joining me again for part 2 of my video essay series on playing like Eddie Van Halen based on my own opinions and my own experience. I hope it's been informative. If you didn't catch part 1 of this video series, please go to my channel and check it out. There's also lots of shorts of me playing different guitar pieces, all inspired by Eddie Van Halen. So if you're a Van Halen fan, then you and I have a lot in common, and I encourage you to check out my channel. Again, please leave a like if you enjoyed this and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.